Hey everyone, I'm back, and after looking at my whole list of books that I've read for 2024, I've narrowed down my favorites. I'm honestly surprised to say that a few of them have changed from when I did my half year favorites in June. So, after seeing like the whole list, I was like, okay, these are definitely the most memorable ones. So, some came out, some went in, and now I'm going to tell you which ones those are. This list isn't going to have all books that were released in 2024. I read a lot of books that were released in previous years that I'm just now reading, but it's just basically a list of everything that I read this year that is my absolute favorite. But these books are in no particular order from favorite to least favorite. They're just all the best. So let's go ahead and get started. First on my list is literally the entire ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. I literally just started reading these this year. I'm missing A Court of Wings and Ruin right now. I lent it out. But anyway, I literally started reading them this year, and I've been so obsessed with all of them. And I've done all of my reviews on them. I've even posted videos on them. They were amazing. It blew my mind. And I don't think any of them were released this year, but they were so amazing. Like, the world building was great. You had a lot of romance, you had action. It was everything that I could have wanted and more. This series, the only reason I actually started reading it, because I'm not typically drawn to fantasy, the only reason I started reading it was because I adored Fourth Wing so much. And I started reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to read fantasy now. I'm just going to have to go out there and read fantasy, because obviously this is what I've been missing in my reading life. It's so good. So if you haven't read that series yet, highly recommend. Definitely on the top of my list. And actually, it is the ACOTAR series minus A Court of Frost and Starlight, because I did not like that one at all. It was a Christmas story, no plot. It gave you minimal information, and no, that's not part of my list. The four novels, A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and A Court of Silver Flames. Those are my four favorite for this year. So the next one on my list is my token nonfiction for the year, Tell Me Everything by Erica Krause. So this is a PI story about a private investigator who was investigating assault culture in football at a college. Let me see. It was basically, I don't even know if they ever mentioned the college, but it's a college that's well known for this, which is something you don't want to be well known for. But this whole book is basically the story of this private investigator and her journey to try and bring justice to the women who have been attacked by these football players. So good. It was really heartbreaking. It really was. It was a hard read, but it was so great. I absolutely adored it. Okay, next, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This, oh my gosh. So, you get close to summer and you're like, all right, I need some romance in my life. I need a really great romance. You get this, and it exceeds all expectations. I have never read a book by Abby Jimenez. Never in my life. Am I going to continue reading books by her? Absolutely. I'm going to request the e-arc on NetGalley so I can read her newest release before everybody else. I highly doubt I'll get accepted, but we'll see. It was great. I mean, it was about this girl who is basically a nurse. She thinks she's cursed because every boyfriend who breaks up with her ends up engaged the next girl that they date. And then she meets a guy who actually has the same curse, and they decide to date each other to break the curse. And I loved every second of it. Every second. Pick this book up, read it when you want a romance. You will not regret it. Okay. Next up, this one was a choice for my book club. It is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This one was so great. I listened to it on audiobook. I definitely think it should have won the Goodreads choice. It did not for audiobook, but it should have. The audiobook was amazing. You can tell when a book is written in a way that it is meant to be adapted to an audiobook. This reminded me a lot of Sadie by Courtney Summers, where the audiobook was just so great and you wouldn't have gotten the same experience reading the actual book. Now, this is basically about a girl who is accused of murdering her best friend. It is never convicted, and she left her small hometown because everybody hated her because they thought she killed her best friend. So she comes back, and then this true crime podcaster decides to take on this story and find out who actually killed her best friend. It's a whirlwind. I highly recommend the audiobook because the audiobook made this, it made it amazing. I'm sure reading the book is still really great, but the story was just, you can't compare the audiobook to the book because it's just different. It's so different, but it was so good. Next on my list, Margot's Got Money Troubles. This one, book of the month pick, obviously, by Ruthie Thorpe. It was about this girl who gets pregnant in college. She drops out and she's trying to find a way to raise her son and make money because it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you're single. So she gets into OnlyFans and it's funny and it's eye-opening and it really makes you sit here and wonder like, okay, maybe I've been judging too harshly on things that I really don't know anything about. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I thought Margot was such a great heroine for the book. And honestly, I still remember every bit of it. So pick this up, go read it. It's not romance, not really. More contemporary. You don't have a lot of subplots, I guess you would say. But this is very contemporary, very straightforward. I enjoyed every second of it. Okay, so I've been seeing this one all over NetGalley because the second one just came out in November. Thieves Gambit by Kavion Lewis. When I tell you this book was the funnest book that I've read this year, I sincerely mean it. It reminded me so much of all of these dystopian novels. Like, okay, it reminded me so much of novels like The Inheritance Games the first time that I read it, or The Selection the first time that I read it. Not that this isn't a lot of romance, but same concept. It's like this game show, but not a game show. It's about all these thieves that have to compete against each other to win the gambit, and then they become like the ultimate thief. It's hard to explain, but you have romance, you have betrayals, you have so much going on, and it was just the funnest thing that I've read this year. And I will recommend this to anyone that I meet. Anyone, any person, anything. And I read the second one and it was just as good. Seriously, seriously. If you take any of my recommendations seriously, take this one. I said seriously a lot. Anyway, so great. You will not regret it. It was so much fun. Probably, if I had to pick any book, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick my favorite. If I had to pick any book for my number one favorite this year, it's this one. It was amazing. All right, we are nearing the end, and the next one is The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. I picked this up because I know that Netflix has been supposed to be adapting it. I don't know if they'll actually adapt it. I feel like they have pushed it back and it might just not happen. But anyway, read the book. This was so great. It's about this girl who grows up with her mother who is a con artist. So this girl is basically, she doesn't feel like a full person because she doesn't know who she is. She's always been conning to be someone else. And basically she gets stuck in a bank heist and has to figure her way out with her friends after she's escaped the con artist life and doesn't want to do it anymore. And honestly, like, I can't even hype this up enough because it was so good. It had so much depth, so many questions that gets brought up, and you love all of the characters. I love them all dearly, especially Nora, who's the con artist's daughter. I hope they end up adapting it. I really do, but I'm losing faith. But seriously, this was a great book. The very last books on my list, I have been working on this series for a long time. The last 3 books in the Shatter Me series. I have Restore Me, Defy Me. I read this series because everyone hyped it up so much. Shatter Me, Shatter Me, Shatter Me, Shatter Me. I read the first one, I was like, eh. I read the second one, I was like, okay, cool. And then I read the third one, I was like, this, it just doesn't feel developed. It only felt like romance with a subplot of the reestablishment. You get to Restore Me, Defy Me, and I finally get the world building that I've been hoping for. You also have the romance. You also have the characters, but you get the world building too, and it feels like so much more than the first 3, and I fell in love with it. I really loved the characters in the first 3, but they didn't have anything going. You had these destroy the reestablishment plots, but it wasn't anything compared to, oh, romance, love triangle, Adam, Aaron. You get to these 3, and you get all of the adventure, all of the romance, and all of the destruction of the reestablishment. This is what I wanted in this series, and I'm sad that it took so long to get to this point, but it was great. And I loved it. All right, so that is my list of my favorite books that I've read this year. They are in no particular order. I did name my favorite, just one though. But other than that, there's in no order for which one was better than the rest. I think this was such a great year for me. I read around 70-ish books. Might read 1 or 2 more. We'll see. but it was great, and I absolutely adore reading. I think it literally gives you so many opportunities to grow as a person and to learn. You can't ask for more than that. Tell me which books that you've read this year that were your favorites, and if you want to recommend any to me to read for next year. I will be happy to make videos of any books that I think I might absolutely adore or not so much. But leave me a comment down below and subscribe if you like this video because I always make videos like this all the time. And I will make another one like this next year. But in the meantime, look out for my next book review on my channel. Bye, guys.